Welcome back, everybody. A lot of important stimulus news. I'm going to give you an update on where the negotiations stand. I'm also going to show you a clip in which Steven Mnuchin gives a statement on what it's like dealing with the Democrat leaders in these negotiations. I'm also going to tell you what the Democrat leaders are going to do this week. And finally, I'm going to give you the 3 scenarios that you should look for this week. By August 7th, one of these 3 is going to happen. Welcome back, everybody. This is your stimulus update for Sunday, August 2nd. Right now, things are going a little better. The reports coming out from yesterday from both sides is that the negotiations went a lot more smooth. There was more agreement, and probably what was happening is the hardlining stopped. They softened up a little bit. They realized, wait a second, we got some things in common here. And those areas where they finally realized we have a lot in common with the next stimulus bill is sending out more money to the American people, also continuing to fund hospitals, giving more funding to schools and to research, and also unemployment. However, the unemployment area leads us into where they have a big disagreement. The fact of the matter is Democrats want to continue it at $600 a week through the end of 2020. Republicans want to continue it at $200 a week and then put it to this 70% number starting in October. There's also a major disagreement when it comes to funding state and local governments. The Democrats want to fund state and local governments at about $1 trillion. The Republicans don't really want to fund state and local governments at all. And so the United States Secretary of the Treasury, Steven Mnuchin, who's really negotiating on the side of the Republicans in the Senate and the White House on this, gave a statement today in which he updated how those negotiations are going. Let's take a look at it.
Realistically, when do you think a deal can get done? What is your best hope?
I have no idea.
But what do you say to people out there who are waiting on
what I say to the people out there is, tell the Democrats, let's do a short-term deal. The 2 issues on evictions and unenhanced unemployment. We're prepared to do a deal for a couple of weeks while we negotiate. I can't speculate. As we've said before, we're very far apart on certain issues. Yesterday, I would say, was a very different tone and a very productive discussion. We're having the staff meet today. We thought it made sense to have the staff do more work. We'll be meeting tomorrow. So, look, if we come to a compromise, we could reach an agreement tomorrow. It would require a substantial move from the Democrats on a lot of issues.
All right, United States Secretary of Treasury Steven Mnuchin there. Remember, he's negotiating on the side of the White House and Senate Republicans, and we get a lot of important statements. First off, he says no idea when a deal can be done, and then you hear a little chuckle in the background. But then they ask him, well, what are you going to tell all the people? And then what he does is he squarely puts the blame on the Democrat leaders, and he says, you want to tell the people? Go tell them to tell the Democrats to agree to a short-term deal so we can continue to negotiate this thing out. Now, I have a couple of issues with that. Number one, the Democrats put forth their hero bill 2 months ago. During that time period, the Republicans did nothing. They were appointing different individuals to different seats and doing other little things here and there, but they were just waiting on numbers. And finally, within the last couple of weeks, the Republicans started doing some things. And now all of a sudden, they want more time. I don't want to choose sides here, and generally I don't, but I would actually advise the Democrats not to do a short-term deal, primarily because the Republicans waited 2 months to even start these negotiations. So I think it's very disingenuous on the part of Steven Mnuchin. And if I was a reporter, I would have followed up with that question. I would have said, Mr. Mnuchin, you want them to give you another couple of weeks, but you waited 2 months to start these negotiations. Now, he didn't really wait that long, but the Senate Republicans did. In addition, the idea of agreeing to a short-term plan takes a lot of the negotiating power out of the hands of the Democrat leaders, and they simply aren't going to give that up. The Democrat leaders realize right now that the United States Senate, the Republicans in the Senate, are going to go on recess after August 7th. And Nancy Pelosi already declared to the House that they are not going to go on recess. So they realize a short-term deal is going to take power out of their hands, and that is not something they're willing to do. So when Steven Mnuchin said, hey, we could have a deal done by tomorrow if the Democrats will agree to something short-term so we can continue negotiations, the Democrat negotiators are not going to agree to a short-term deal in which they stop the evictions and they continue unemployment for a little while. Because of what the Republicans did in waiting 2 months to even start negotiations, no, they shouldn't agree to a short-term deal. In addition, you can tell he's very frustrated. If you watch the entire interview, you can see that even more. I'll leave the link below, but he also does talk about the $1,200 stimulus and says we can get that out immediately. Within the next week after that, we'll get those payments out. So that's a good thing at least. So what are the possible scenarios that can occur this week? These are the 3 that I would expect. Number 1, they get a deal done. The Republican and the Democrat negotiators meet in the middle somewhere around $2 trillion. They fund more stimulus payments to the American people. They continue the unemployment boost, probably at a much higher than $200 rate, maybe $400 to $600 for a certain amount of time, and then changing over time. They're going to give more money to states and local municipalities. They're going to give money to schools and hospitals and research. There's going to be liability protection. It's all going to be a compromise in the middle, and they're going to get it done by August 7th. Scenario number 2, there is no deal. By August 7th, they can't come up with anything, and the Senate is going to go on recess. Meanwhile, the House is going to stay in session. This is going to be a massive debacle that's going to be put forth as the Republicans, as the Democrats refuse to do anything with us. They wouldn't do a short-term deal. They wouldn't do any compromising, nothing. And the Democrats are going to say, we're still here on the Hill. We're ready. We're in session. Let's continue negotiating. That's what's going to go forth. Or scenario number 3, the Senate is going to delay their recess. You're going to see a statement come out in the next few days, probably by Mitch McConnell, and he is going to say, we are going to delay our recess as well so that we can continue negotiating with each other. Which one of these 3 do I think is actually going to play out? Well, the one I don't think is going to happen is scenario number 2. If the Senate goes on recess without a deal, it is politically going to destroy them and the Republicans. And at least I think they're smart enough to realize that. In the back rooms, there's got to be somebody there saying, guys, you can't go on recess without a deal. You're going to look terrible. The Democrats are going to stay in session, and we're going to walk away from this. It doesn't matter what we say. We can say they weren't agreeing. We can tell them that they wouldn't agree to a short-term deal. We're going to look terrible going on recess back to our own districts. I don't foresee scenario number 2 occurring. So we're left with either they're going to get a deal done by August 7th, and it's going to be a meet in the middle, $2.2 trillion deal. It's going to fund all the necessities, or scenario number 3, they're not going to get a deal done, but Mitch McConnell is going to come out and say the Senate is also not going to go on recess. I think it's a 50-50 throw up between those 2 on what to expect. It all depends on how hardline each of these groups want to stay, but that is what you should expect coming up. That's what we see from this statement from Steven Mnuchin. That's what we see from the statements from Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. In my opinion, I don't think they're really going to come up with a deal. I think that Mitch McConnell is going to have to delay the recess, and if he doesn't do that, man, talk about a political issue for him and the Republicans going forward. But what are your thoughts? Do you agree with me? Which scenario do you think is going to happen? Or do you foresee a different scenario that I did not list? I know that there are others, but I didn't think that they were worthy of putting on the list. But maybe you have one that you think, Vin, I think this might go down instead. But nonetheless, it's going to be interesting to watch it this week. If you want to be kept updated on it, as always, consider subscribing to the channel. We offer a unique perspective here where we sort of just dive into the facts, show you the interviews, and then tell you exactly what we think is going on. And we've generally been very good on it. So we'll continue forward. When is this whole thing going to get done? I think they might be able to do it by August 7th, but if none of them are willing to relent, expect Mitch McConnell to come out and say the Senate is also not going on recess. If he doesn't do that, it is going to be the demise of the Republicans in the Senate. I would not want to be there for that November election. Hope you guys enjoyed this one and got a lot of good information out of it. As always, I will catch you next time.